The metal trash can skittered into my boot as CFO Caleb Morton nudged it with a glossy shoe and smirked. $1 million deals don't like the smell of bleach. Laughter ricocheted off glass and chrome. The city glittered behind him like a jury of strangers. I kept my head down, fingers brushing the worn edge of my first Orion badge tucked inside the janitor's pocket, the plastic warm from my skin. This deal will fall apart by Friday, I said, calm enough to frost the room. The laughter stopped. Morton's smile twitched as his slide deck reflected across the floor. Numbers I'd built, now daring me to stay invisible. I'm not here for floors. I'm here for the foundation. Behind the bleach and the stitched name tag sits a voting trust and a signature that still binds this company's spine mine. Orion's reputation, the Northbridge Robotics acquisition, our top 3 clients, the very image we sell to the market as precision. All of it balances on a slide deck and the breath of a man who thinks I mop for a living. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Northbridge's counsel. We're wavering. An emergency board meeting lands on my calendar for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Stamped urgent in red. 24 hours. If I blow my cover too soon, the rot scatters. If I wait, the deal sours and takes our credibility with it. I thumb the old Orion badge inside my pocket like a rosary, its faded hologram catching my skin. It was the first thing I printed when we were 6 people and a dream. Now it feels like a detonator. By sunrise tomorrow, I either prove the numbers are bent and the culture is worse, or watch Orion lose Northbridge, spook the street, and teach every bully here that invisibility equals permission. The clock starts now. Fluorescent lights flicker over the executive corridor, humming above glass walls that pretend to be transparent. In Orion, jokes have job titles. Nice accent. Where's that from? Discount University? A senior PM says to a Syrian engineer, loud enough to land a laugh, soft enough to dodge a microphone. A stack of resumes slides off a recruiter's arm. She lets them fall at my feet without breaking her sentence about cultural fit. I kneel, gather pages that smell like toner and hope, and she thanks the air behind me. On 12, the CEO steps out of a meeting just as a sales lead mocks a QA analyst's name. Syllables stretch thin. Hannah Pierce's eyes graze over us. Then away, her mouth a straight line pressed by time. She keeps walking. The door closes with a hush that sounds like consent. I ride the service elevator with a cart, lemon cleaner haloing the air. The badge in my pocket clicks against my phone, the old Orion badge with the silver O worn to pewter. I press my thumb to it and feel the groove I made the day we signed our first client. In this uniform, I'm background texture. A moving coat rack, a rolling bottle of bleach. People talk freely in front of furniture. At lunch, a finance analyst tries to log an HR complaint on the kiosk by the snack wall. The system freezes, blips, and resets his entry to draft. He tries again. The screen offers him a training on resilience. Later, I hear him tell a friend, I filed the thing last month. It's gone. The friend shrugs toward the ceiling where the cameras blink. New, sleek, pointed at doors, not at voices. A hiring panel spills into the hall. Great skills, but she's not a culture ad, someone says, and they all nod. The candidate waits in a chair, hands folded over a thin portfolio, eyes on the floor as if answers live in carpet. I sweep past, mop head whispering like I'm signing an NDA with every pass. Hey, bleach guy. A junior trader snaps his fingers. There's a spill in Conference B. He tosses a wadded napkin toward the bin and misses. I pick it up. He doesn't see me, he sees a function. On the wall-mounted TV, a business network praises Orion's precision culture. The ticker scrolls unbothered. Every corridor plays the same music. Papers dropped for others to stoop, accents made into party favors, fit used like a velvet rope. HR's inbox autofilters anger to coaching moments. If you ask where a complaint went, you're told it was handled offline. I've watched names disappear from org charts like they were never typed. I pause by a glass conference room where Morton rehearses his smirk in the dark reflection, bathed in projector blue. He doesn't see me. Good. I tuck the badge deeper into my pocket, feel its edges, and keep rolling. In a place built of glass, the invisibility is designed. The trick is remembering who installed the mirrors. Morton flips to a slide with a waterfall chart so glossy it could sell cologne. From the doorway, I clock 3 landmines before his sentence finishes. First, synergies stacked to the sky. No ramp curve. No churn drag. No cost to earn. He's compounding savings off headcount as if talent were electricity you just switch off. Second, integration costs shaved to a whisper. No duplicate vendors. No system cutovers. No lease break fees. Just miscellaneous. Third, a tidy EBITDA base that ignores Northbridge's debt restructure last quarter. The covenant reset buried in footnote 7 like a snake under a porch. I rest my palm on the cart and run the math in my head. The way I did when Orion was 6 desks and a rented printer. Synergy accrual at 25%, 60%, 85% over 3 quarters, not day 1. Add contractor burn for parallel systems, triple-staffed help desks for the cutover window, penalties for early termination. Rebuild the EBITDA bridge with the post-restructure interest, not the fairy tale rate from 2 filings ago. The numbers click into place faster than Morton can say transformational. He gestures at a hockey stick graph. Run rate by Q2, he declares. In the glass, I catch my own reflection in the Janitor blues, and under it a flicker of the badge in my pocket. The old Orion O, scratched like a promise you test with a thumbnail. I adjust the cart and whisper the corrected figure to myself. Lower, truer. Still profitable if you tell the truth early and fund the merge like adults. The projector fan hums. Analysts scribble the wrong deltas because they trust the man with the lapel pin, not the one with the mop. I'm not offended. I'm taking inventory. When the room is ready, I won't argue. I'll show my work. Morton tapped the screen with his laser, then lifted his chin toward me. Let's translate a P&L for folks who didn't finish school, he said, slow and generous, as if offering charity. A few chuckles rolled across the table like loose coins. I slid my mop bucket to the corner, eyes down, and watched his thumb cover a footnote while he talked over it. He rounded a cost line with the laser, then accidentally clicked to a summary that made the problem disappear. Jordan, why'd you model churn at 5%? He snapped at the junior analyst at the end of the table. Jordan's tie was a half-mast apology. Because of the integration dip we saw at Argus, Jordan said. We discussed your negativity. Morton cut in. Fix it. Or take a resilience course. HR will help. He didn't look at HR when he said it. He looked at the room, daring anyone to frown. At the printer bank, a stack slid out marked RFP, Lakeside Consulting. The logo was crisp, the address familiar. A lakeside street in the same suburb where Morton's holiday photos were geotagged last year. I separated a misfeed and saw a Gmail alias forwarded into the tender thread. A surname that matched his. The paper smelled like warm plastic and shortcuts. On 12, I passed an office where he told a recruiter, no more culture projects. Not this quarter. We'll scrap the diversity stuff post-close. Northbridge wants focus. He said it like he was canceling stale pastries. The recruiter laughed the way people do when the floor is thin. My phone buzzed. Northbridge's deal lead. We're pausing. No emoji. No cushion. Your CFO's numbers aren't reconciling with our debt notes. We need clarity by tomorrow or we walk. I pressed my thumb to the old Orion badge in my pocket until the groove hurt. Understood, I said. You'll have it. Back in the corridor, Jordan stood by the snack wall, staring at a frozen HR form on the kiosk. It won't save, he whispered when he noticed me, embarrassed to be speaking to a uniform. It just times out. His cursor blinked like a metronome counting down. Morton strode past, phone to ear. No, Lakeside's clean, he said softly, eyes on the carpet. Keep it off the main register. He caught my reflection in the glass and smirked, as if my invisibility confirmed his invincibility. I turned the mop bucket handle so the metal gave a quiet click, the same click my badge made when it tapped my phone. The clock didn't just tick. It started counting out loud, and everyone pretended not to hear it. The stairwell smelled like wet concrete and burnt coffee, a place where secrets cooled quick. I let the door hush shut behind me and dialed from the service landing. the old Orion badge pressed between my palm and the phone like a gasket. Lillian picked up on the first ring. "Trigger the board session," I said. "Per our bylaws. Pull the tender archive, Lakeside, and all routing aliases. Today." Her voice came steady, steel wrapped in silk. "Copy. Legal preservation notice goes out in 10 minutes. You want finance and procurement on hold. Everyone who touched the RFP. And make the invite list airtight." I flipped the badge with my thumb and watched the O flash in the dim. "All evidence stays within posted surveillance policy and legal holds. No private channels, no surprises. We do this clean." 2 flights down. The door opened and a pair of sales guys clattered in, laughing about soft skills. I tucked the phone away, collected my cart, and rode the silence to 12. Nina Alvarez's office had a plant drooping toward a ceramic owl and walls lined with neat blue folders like apologies. She stood by the copier, sleeves pushed up, eyes rimmed in a sleepless red. When she stepped into the hall to answer someone's question about PTO caps, I reached for the folder labeled Investigations, Q3. The card slid easy, a sliver of truth into a pocket made for secrets. Marcus Reed, co-founder. Voting trust. Embossed letters, no flourish. I nested it behind a memo titled Escalations, pending, then closed the folder so the tab clicked home. On her desk, a spill of sticky notes mapped complaints to nowhere. Outside her glass wall, Morton passed by, phone at his ear, the word Lakeside floating in his wake like a sheen on water. Nina came back in and paused, sensing me without seeing me. "Thanks," she said out of habit as I emptied the shred bin. I nodded at the air, kept my head down, and let the badge edge press a half moon into my palm. Somewhere close, Lillian's emails were already flying. Clock stamped, compliant, impossible to unring. The choice was made. By the time I reached the service elevator, my phone buzzed. "Board session confirmed. 9 o'clock tomorrow. Preservation notices served. Tender vault locked." I exhaled through my teeth and watched the brushed steel doors reflect a blue figure with a mop and a secret. "No more drafts," I told the reflection. The elevator chimed. The floor numbers glowed upward. The point of no return didn't feel like a leap. It felt like finally stepping on solid ground. They baited me in the next review like kids daring each other to lick a frozen pole. Morton leaned back, laced his hands behind his head, and tipped his chin toward the screen. "Hey, bleach guy," he said, voice syrupy. "Since you're so sure about Friday, want to assess the charts? Translate for the practical minds." A ripple of amusement. Someone slid a dry erase marker to the edge of the table like a tip. I parked the cart by the door, wiped my palms on my sleeve, and felt the old Orion badge press a crescent into my skin. I kept my eyes on the screen. "Happy to," I said. Morton clicked to the EBITDA bridge, wide, glossy, confident. I walked to the wallboard, marker uncapped with a quiet pop. "Your base is wrong," I said, steady. "You're using Northbridge's prairie structure interest." I wrote the digits in the corner, simple and big. Last quarter's reset rate from their amendment. Public filing. No secrets. Start here, not there. Jordan, the junior analyst, sat up like a swimmer breaking water. "That's what he started, then swallowed it. I nodded at him. "You saw it." I drew 3 short bars. "Synergies accrue. Not day 1 magic. 25% in Q1, 60 in Q2, 85 by Q3. If you don't churn your best engineers trying to hit a number that only exists in a victory lap." I circled a line labeled Integration, Miscellaneous. And this is where duplicate vendor contracts go to hide. System cutover costs, lease breaks, parallel service desks for 60 days. I wrote parallel burn and underlined it. "Cute," Morton said, smile thin. "A man with a mop and percentages." "Also," I said, and clicked his trackpad with one knuckle so the footnotes filled the side panel. "Your covenant math ignores the step-down triggers. Net leverage capped at 3.0x post-restructure. If you model the bridge off the old terms, you miss the coverage ratio by," I wrote the delta. "This much." The room went quiet in the way rooms do when a train doesn't stop. Hannah, the CEO, leaned forward. "Where are you pulling that from?" she asked, careful. "Northbridge's filing and our own vendor schedules," I said. "And the Argus integration deck." I tapped Jordan's binder. He had it tabbed. Bless him. Page 9. He flagged the churn risk. Morton's jaw worked once. "Even if we grant your notes," he said, "we still hit the target by Q2. You hit an honest target by Q3, I said. If you tell the street now and fund the integration like adults, we keep Northbridge and our credibility." I clicked his slide back to the summary. "If you sell the hockey stick, you miss the ice." A few heads turned toward Hannah. She didn't speak. Jordan cleared his throat. "He's right about the debt," he said, barely above a whisper. "I tried to." Morton shot him a look that could cut laminate. "Enough." I recapped the marker, set it on the table without a sound, and returned to my cart. The badge in my pocket felt heavier, like it remembered who printed it. I didn't gloat. I didn't blink. I just squeezed the handle until the metal warmed and waited for the room to decide whether it wanted a clean floor or a clean ledger. The boardroom smelled like binder glue and cold coffee at 9 a.m. sharp. Frosted glass blurred the skyline. A pitcher sweated onto a coaster. I took the back wall by the cable tray, Janitor Blues crisp, the old Orion badge hot in my pocket. Lillian slid a red string tab on her folder and nodded at the AV cart. "We'll start with common area footage," she said. "Captured under posted surveillance policy. Chain of custody maintained." Her voice was courtroom clean. The screen lit with the grain of a Tuesday afternoon, time-stamped. In the kitchenette, Morton leaned against the counter, cracking an aluminum can with 2 fingers. "If your accent's heavy, your severance will be light," he joked to 2 managers. Their laughter came out thin and eager. Cut to a corridor outside recruiting. "We'll scrap the diversity stuff after close," he said into his phone, smiling as he passed a poster that promised inclusion. No one spoke. The projector hummed. Next came a tidy inbox, Lakeside Consulting at the top, unfurled across the screen. Lillian didn't narrate. She let the headers talk. An RFP forwarded to a Gmail alias sharing Morton's surname. A reply from procurement. "Should we log this?" Met with, "Keep it off the main register." A side thread. "Make sure the ownership disclosure reads, independent." The cursor blinked over the word like it wanted to testify. Nina Alvarez stood, palms flat on a thin stack. "Compensation analysis, L6 and above," she said, voice tight but steady. "Median gap of 12.7% for comparable roles. Promotion velocity for foreign-born employees runs at 0.68x. 43 complaints tagged bias in the last 4 quarters. 29 closed as coaching, 14 marked non-actionable. 7 had complete attachments that do not appear in the current HRIS. She held up a spreadsheet printed with tidy rows and ugly truths. "I've cross-checked with email receipts. These entries existed." Her eyes flicked toward Hannah, then back to the table. The IT tech at the wall unplugged a cable and set the remote down. Then she removed her glasses and slid a leather case onto the table. The badge inside flashed gold under the LEDs. "Meredith Clark, Securities and Exchange Commission," she said, voice like a level on a beam. "We're observing under a lawful industry inquiry." She didn't raise it. She didn't have to. I set my scuffed Orion badge beside Meredith's federal shield. Metal to metal, past to present. Morton's hand froze halfway to his tie. "You can't." "We can," Meredith said. "And we did." She tapped the screen. "Midnight file activity, 12 minutes past 1. Your account token via a shared admin connection. Deletions and renames in a folder labeled Lakeside. Cross-verify with the cloud provider's server logs." She clicked again. A heat map of keystrokes painted the hours. "Your VPN session originated from your home IP. The attempted wipes failed due to an active preservation hold issued at 12:41 a.m. She tilted her head, almost kind. "You were late." Lillian slid a sealed envelope across to the board secretary. "Affidavits attached. Preservation notices, server logs, and vendor disclosures, all collected within policy and law. Hannah's pen didn't move. Her reflection in the glass looked like a question mark. "Caleb," she said finally, not loud, "is there anything you want to say to the board?" Morton offered the smile he used on earnings calls, the one that didn't reach his eyes. "We are in a high-pressure window," he began. "Jokes land badly. Vendors get messy. I was cleaning data." "Cleaning," Meredith repeated, one brow up. He swallowed. "Standard hygiene." On the far end, Jordan sat very still, a page in his binder creasing under his thumb. The old Orion badge burned a crescent into my palm. Lillian glanced at me once, just a flicker, like a runner tapping a teammate's hand at the turn. The room held its breath. Outside the glass, the company buzzed unaware, screens glowing, numbers marching. Inside, the projector light cut a hard rectangle across the table, bright enough to show fingerprints on everything he'd touched. I stepped away from the cable tray and set my gloves on the table like a surgeon done with the delicate part. The old Orion badge came out of my pocket last, edges warm, the O dulled to pewter. I placed it beside a manila envelope. "My name is Marcus Reed," I said, voice flat enough to stack documents on. "Co-founder, voting trust holder." A ripple moved through the board, heads tilting, eyes narrowing, someone's pen clicking twice. Morton let out a laugh that ended in his throat. "Cute," he said. "Security will." I slid the envelope toward the board secretary. Inside, the trust agreement, amendments and confirmations, dates, countersignatures, cap table extracts. Per our charter and Schedule B, the voting trust controls preferred blocks and assigned early common, I said. Current total, 61% of the vote. The secretary's fingers moved fast and precise, lips reading silently. She checked the seal tabs, the notarizations, the last filed updates. Then she lifted her head. "Confirmed," she said, voice carrying more than any microphone. "Trust is in good order. Records match the registrar." Hannah's eyes found mine and stayed there a beat. She looked like someone remembering a door they used to have a key to. "Marcus," she said, breath a quarter second behind the word. "Mark is fine," I said. "Same as yesterday." Morton cleared his throat hard. "This is theater," he managed. "The business of the day." "The business," I said, "is whether Orion tells the truth, honors its people, and closes a good deal without fraud or favors." I tapped the trust packet with one finger. "We're voting." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Motion 1. Remove Caleb Morton from the Office of Chief Financial Officer for cause, effective immediately, pending completion of internal and regulatory processes. Assign interim financial authority to Audit Chair Patel and Controller Diaz, with full cooperation from legal. Silence pooled. Then Audit Chair Patel nodded once. "Second," she said. "All in favor?" the secretary called. Hands rose one after another. Meredith watched faces the way a pilot watches gauges. I lifted my hand last. The secretary counted. "Motion carries." Morton turned a color that looked expensive. "You can't." "We can," I said. And we did. Issue a formal reprimand to CEO Hannah Pierce for governance failures with a conditional mandate to repair. 90 days to present and begin execution on a culture remediation plan, an independent review of complaint handling, and a procurement audit. Progress reviewed monthly by the board. Patel's hand was already up. Second. The vote moved faster this time. Hannah kept her gaze on the table, then nodded once when the count finished. "Understood," she said, voice low. Her pen hovered, then landed twice in the margin. Her jaw set. For the first time all morning, she stopped watching the table and started taking ownership. My phone buzzed against the wood. Northbridge's deal lead. Acknowledged governance change. Will resume diligence if interim finance leads. 3 p.m. today. I slid the phone face up so the message glowed. Around the table, shoulders dropped half an inch. I picked up the badge and set it beside the trust packet on the polished oak. Metal against paper, past against present. Last item, I said. We notify the market after this meeting. Plain language. No spin. The story is simple. We chose integrity over speed. Meredith closed her leather case with a soft click. The commission appreciates clarity, she said. Morton sat very still, hands on the table like he needed to feel something that wouldn't move. Outside the glass, Orion kept humming keyboards, coffee grinders. Inside, the air thinned and then refilled, like a building exhaling after the fire door opens. By noon, the letters were already coming down from the marble in the lobby. Sleek sans serif that had replaced the original sign. I watched the contractors lift the old O from a felt-lined crate, the same curve I'd drawn on a napkin 11 years ago. The metal was colder than I remembered when I pressed my thumb to it. Put it back where it belongs, I said. The foreman nodded. The drill whined, and the wall took its name back. We moved fast, paper first. Effective today, I told the room with legal and audit present. Jordan Price is promoted to senior risk analyst. Jordan blinked like the ceiling had shifted. Retro raise to $118,000 and a $15,000 bonus for the Argus and Northbridge flags. Booked this cycle. He managed a thank you, quiet and precise like his models. Nina, I said, turning to her. She looked up from her notes, eyes careful. Budget authority increased by $750,000 for remediation and analytics, and you have veto on executive comp until the audit closes. I slid a signed memo across. You asked for teeth. Use them. Compensation went next. We pulled the deltas out of the spreadsheet like splinters. Back pay for gap closures hits Friday, I said to the HR and payroll leads. 47 employees, total $1.92 million. No NDAs, no gag clauses. Letters go out today with corrected titles where appropriate. I initialed each page. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Maybe that's what accountability weighs. Procurement rerouted while we sat there. Lakeside is canceled for cause, Audit Chair Patel announced, tone neutral as a gavel. Open tenders are paused pending reissue on a verified platform. The room exhaled. We retained an independent compensation auditor today. The public summary is due in 90 days. Northbridge dialed in at 3 p.m. Their deal lead sounded like a person who'd slept again. I didn't sell sunshine. I offered math and respect. We extend the integration runway by 1/4, I said. Increase the carve-out support by $4.2 million and leave your apprenticeship and safety programs untouched. No headcount promises we can't keep. No gutting to fake a synergy. You get a clean bridge and a partner who tells the truth. Silence, then a breath. Proceed, she said. On those terms. By evening, the wire hit the intranet. Morton removed. Interim finance named. Back pay issued. Tenders reopened. Northbridge re-engaged. I placed my old badge on the executive desk beside the stamped trust packet and the fresh memo stack. The plastic looked small next to the paper, but it cast a longer shadow. We didn't fix a headline, we rebuilt the plumbing. By morning, the culture office existed on paper and in a lease suite 3 blocks away, separate network, separate HRIS view, an ombud with subpoena reflexes, and a director who doesn't report to me or Hannah but straight to the board. We signed an external hotline vendor with a 24-hour triage SLA and 72-hour status updates. No anonymity traps. No coaching detours. Every complaint gets a case number you can track like a package. If someone has to whisper to be safe, our system is loud in the wrong places. I told the team. Executive bonuses changed in one sentence. 25% contingent on inclusion KPIs. Not posters, numbers. Pay gap under 2% after controls within 90 days. Promotion velocity parity within the first quarter. Complaint closure times under 14 days with documented outcomes. Miss the targets, forfeit the slice. Audit Chair Patel read the clause aloud and initialed it first. Procurement moved off shadows. We shifted RFPs to a transparent platform with public timelines, conflict of interest attestations, and auto-published award rationales. No side threads, no family trees hiding in Gmail. All evaluators sign and timestamp their scores. Deviations flag automatically for review. Interim procurement audit delivered at day 30. Final at day 60. We opened the executive floor literally. Keycard restrictions lifted from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Thursday. Anyone can walk the hall, ask a question, or just see the view. And once a month, bottom-up questions lead the board agenda. We post the top 20, unedited, with names optional, within 3 days after each meeting. I sit at the end of the long table and read them out loud before financials. Why did my complaint disappear? What's our plan for visa support? Who gets to say fit? The answers go into the minutes, not the ether. Pay bands and levels left the shadows too. We published ranges and competencies, clear ladders instead of secret handshakes. Calibration sessions now require a moderator from the culture office, and an external auditor sits in once a quarter. If someone says culture add, they have to list 3 observable behaviors and show how they were weighted. For managers, we swapped resilience webinars for training with teeth, interview law, bias recognition tied to real decisions, corrective actions that mean something. We wrote amnesty windows into the rollout. Fix your disclosures, clean your vendor lists, ask the dumb questions now. The point isn't to stockpile scalps. It's to make sure the next complaint doesn't have to be a scandal to be believed. At the end of the first week, I walked the reopened corridor and watched engineers thread through sunlight that used to be frosted out. A QA analyst stopped me by the stairwell. "Is this for real?" she asked, half a laugh in it, half a warning to herself. I showed her the case number on my phone from a test complaint. Timestamps, owner, due date. "We measure it now," I said. "Things that are measured don't disappear." Back in my office, I set the old Orion badge next to a printed copy of the new KPI sheet. The plastic was scuffed, the paper was fresh, and between them sat the only promise that matters in a company: that the way we make money won't erase the people who make it. 6 weeks in, legal slid me a dashboard with clear lines and fewer red flags. Regulatory exposure markers dropped off the heat map. Our outside counsel's note said, "Material risk trending," in the neat handwriting of someone who doesn't use arrows lightly. Attrition bent and then settled, down 19% by week 6, 31% by week 12. I kept the old Orion badge on my desk like a compass and tapped its O whenever someone asked, "Is it working?" The answer arrived in numbers before it arrived in applause. Production throughput ticked up without the whips. When you don't force a team to run with one shoe, they move faster. Our product managers started closing stories they used to kick into next sprint. Output up 14% by the first monthly review, 23% by the second. Customer success sent me a screenshot at 1:03 a.m. CSAT cresting at a record high. "Whatever you're doing," the client wrote, "keep doing it." We weren't doing magic. We were doing maintenance on the human parts. The SEC moved in their own way, measured, quiet, definitive. Meredith sent a short email with a long shadow. The commission would issue guidance on vendor conflicts and complaint handling across the sector. No fanfare, just a line in the Federal Register that would outlive our press cycle. 2 days later, a rival Morton headquartered found itself under audit. He'd always said the market loved swagger. Turns out it prefers receipts. The street noticed. We didn't leak and we didn't spin, we filed. Analysts shifted us from hold to buy in a week that used to belong to our apologies. One note called out the governance premium, a phrase I hadn't heard since our garage days. Another said, execution discipline visible in integration pacing. I printed that one and slid it under the badge, so the O framed the word discipline. Northbridge sent a photo from their shop floor. A new apprentice class in branded goggles, grinning because the future finally had a shape. We'd left their programs intact and our own integrity visible. The dominoes fell the way gravity insists. Once you build the line straight, they land where they should. By dusk, the building softened. Keyboards dimming to a murmur, cleaners trading jokes in the echo of the atrium. I pulled the janitor blues back on and tied the laces double. The old Orion badge a coin of memory in my pocket. The elevator hummed. Evan Brooks met me by the loading dock, sleeves pushed to his elbows, a shy intensity in his eyes. We hefted the translucent bags together, the smell of coffee grounds and paper dust curling into the cool evening air. "You're fast," he said. "Learned from someone meaner than gravity." I said, and he laughed, quick and surprised. On the last run, I wiped my hands on a rag and handed him a small white card. No logo, just a name and a number, my head of engineering. You finished that master's in December, right? He blinked. Yeah. How did you? You mentioned a discrete math final between elevators 3 and 4. I nodded toward the card. Ask for a tour. No promises, just a fair chance. He turned the card over like it might disappear if he blinked. Thank you, he said, the words careful, like a bridge you test before you cross. Upstairs, my office felt larger at night. On the desk, a family photo of 3 faces sunlit and squinting, and beside it the first Orion badge, scratched and honest. I set the badge on the wood beside the voting trust stamp. No fanfare, just order restored. Where people aren't seen, the market sees risk and punishes faster than the courts. Have you ever been made invisible at work? Share your story below. If this hit home, comment and subscribe. More real cases where culture meets finance are coming.